everybody, and welcome back to Very Biased Opinions for week number 2 of our Bundesliga predictions. As always, there are timestamps down below in the description, so you can jump ahead to certain games. We would never recommend you to do that, though. And you can also use the chapters feature on the YouTube video itself.
We are now an Amazon affiliate, so please have a click below. If you're going to buy something, if you click through our banner, we get a small level of commission. It's a small click for you, but it's a bit of money we can put into finally having HD cameras on both ends of this. Additionally, there's a free Audible trial below. If you have a click at that, we get a little bit of money as well. It's really helpful to us. Just click for you. But it means a lot to the boys.
Very good, Thomas. Now, before we head into week 2, we're just going to have a quick look at how we got on.
I don't want to look in. I don't want to.
I had to put up with this in the last week in the Premier League in League One. So it was a win for me on week 1 of the Bundesliga. I've done a bit of a Dolly Parton on Thomas there and won 9-5. What a way to make a living. Crazy first week in the Bundesliga. We'll get to all that stuff, but in terms of our predictions, it really just came down to that 1-1. My faith in Bielefeld was the one that brought me through in the end. So
I'm really proud you can say their name now, though. That's good.
Yeah, a good start for me. Usually predictions doesn't end well for me, so I've got to take my joy where I can get it.
You need to build up that lead and not let it go this year, Ian.
I know. And with more self-promotion out of the way, let's jump into week 2.
FC Augsburg versus Borussia Dortmund.
Both of these sides got a win on the opening weekend. Probably not surprising for Dortmund, but an impressive 3-1 win for Augsburg away at Union Berlin. Was quite a tight game, but a couple of thumping headers were the goals that got Augsburg in front. One just before half-time and then one after half-time from Vargas and from Gregoritsch. Right. Gikovic is obviously who's come in from Union Berlin, did make a great save in the game, so fully justifying why this side such a great goalkeeper. Hahn scored the third. It was an impressive performance because Union came back at them. It wasn't just sort of one-way traffic. Thought both fullbacks were really good as well. Framberger and Iago, very impressive. Looked a lot more solid, and at times we saw them last season, and a lot more clinical. And if that continues, that's a good sign for Augsburg. This is going to be a tough test, and I'll let you talk about Dortmund.
So Dortmund started the season really well under Lucien Favre. They beat Gladbach 3-0, and it was a pretty comprehensive performance. They seemed to be in control for almost the whole game. It is an all-new Dortmund superstar teenage side. Gio Reyna starts out of nowhere, gets a goal. Jude Bellingham actually started, and we both didn't think that was going to happen. But Bellingham and Reyna combined for the first goal, and from that moment onwards, it was just Dortmund for the win. Second half, Reyna won a penalty. It definitely was a penalty, and Haaland scored it. And Haaland was absolutely brutal against Gladbach in this game. There were multiple times where a ball was played through the middle, and Haaland literally just body slammed the defender off him. Totally legally. It wasn't like he was fouling him. But he is an absolute unit. He looks bigger than he's ever looked, and he's still rapid with the ball at his feet. He's a freak. Like, he's a freak of a player.
No, he seems quite old. He seems quite old in this Dortmund side now, isn't he? But he's still quite young.
20.
Yeah.
Whichever team he ends up at in a couple of years, be it Real, Man United, City, whatever team, they are going to win a lot of stuff with this guy at the front of them. But once it was 2-0, Dortmund could sit back, allow Gladbach to just kind of move into them and then break on their pace. Sancho had a great run to set up Haaland to make it 3-0. It was a perfect start for the Owen Blacks. We'll talk obviously more about Gladbach in the next thing. But Ian, it's time for a prediction of the score.
Yeah, it's going to be a Dortmund win for me. They're so good at just controlling games, and they don't have to be like a house on fire from the start. They just sort of ease their way into it and then just get better as the games go on. I see another comfortable win. I'm going to go 3-0 Dortmund again.
Right, well, I don't want to copy you because we've done this a lot recently. So I'm going to go with a 4-1 Borussia Dortmund victory.
Hertha Berlin versus Eintracht Frankfurt.
So Eintracht Frankfurt under Adi Hütter did not have the best of starts. They drew 1-1 with Arminia Bielefeld. It was not a bad performance by any stretch by Frankfurt. They threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at Bielefeld and just could not score. They're genuinely just going to be sat scratching their heads at this point and wondering what the hell just happened. They had all the better chances. They had all the possession. Hinteregger hit the bar. They had to scramble the ball over the line. It was a brave header from Andre Silva for the equalizer. He's absolutely smashed by the defender. And Daichi Kamada's coming in at the back. On that note, it's Kamada watch, baby!
Silva should have been watching for his
our great Japanese import to the Bundesliga. Kamado played, he had a perfectly decent match, didn't do anything particularly special, but he is also not a problem in this team. Bastos and Kostic also looked good like Kamada. It's not a disaster that they didn't win, but you do look at this Frankfurt side and be like, you guys need to put together a run because it was tough for you for most of last year, and you're too good to be in the bottom half of the table. So, Ian, with that being said, who are Hertha Berlin?
Who are Hertha Berlin? Hertha Berlin are one of the most exciting sides to watch in the Bundesliga, Tom. They were brilliant at the end of last year, and they started with a fantastic 4-1 win away at Werder Bremen, full of like everything you'd expect from a Bruno Labbadia side, full of energy, full of pace, full of quality. We did expect them to be good this season, and maybe they're going to be better than even what we expected. So many attacking options in there for them as well. Kuna was amazing. As he always seems to be, as was Derrida, and even to the fact of like talk about attacking options, John Cordoba came off the bench, scored, looked really good for the little cameo that he made. Thoroughly impressive as any other side that we saw at the weekend, really, and leads me to think. Well, I'll throw it over to you to do the prediction first for this one. So I'm just going to quickly say, playing Hertha Berlin is just death by 1,000 cuts. It's like every player on the pitch for them is above average, and then they all play really well together. And you just watch that Werder Bremen game, and it just, like, the right back, I think, scored the first or second goal, and it's only like the second time he's scored in the league. They are just an awesome side. They're really young, and they're really fun to watch. It was fullback to fullback, wasn't it, I think? Yeah, it was. Yeah. On that note, though, I've got Hertha to win. We all know I love Daichi, but Hertha they strike me as one of those sides that could get in the top four if they can just get it together for a whole season. So I've got Hertha Berlin winning 3-1, but Daichi Kamada is going to score. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really open game, and I think that suits Hertha Berlin more than it suits Eintracht Frankfurt, I think. Yeah. And I think it's going to... 3-1 just sounds like the perfect score. You may copy me. I give you permission. Okay, 3-1. Thank you. FSV Mainz 0-5 versus VfB Stuttgart. Stuttgart on their first game back after being promoted. They lost 3-2 to Freiburg. It was a good fight back from Stuttgart as they nearly rescued a point from being 3-0 down. But when you're 3-0 down to Freiburg, has it really been that good of a game at all? It was a very naive performance, especially at the back. Really got punished for sloppy mistakes for 2 of the goals. However, you do have to say that they did never give up. The heads could have dropped and they could have lost by even more, but they did put in a good fighting performance in the end. So Matarazzo will at least be something to look at and build on to move forward. I'm going to say these names wrong. I'm sorry. Klazadic and Waman Gituka got the goals in the closing stages. And they really pushed Freiburg back, and they could have got an equaliser. On another day, it would have been a 3-3 draw. I think this is certainly a game where they'll be looking at to get the win against a Mainz side who looked all right but couldn't defend. But I'll let you go into a bit more about Mainz. I'm also really going to quickly state that this is going to be a really hard year for me because Ian is far more professional than I am. And I just sometimes look at these names, and when they're said correctly, they make sense, but when you read them on a piece of paper, they just look like a random series of consonant and vowels that were thrown together. I mean, that's the thing. I can say it all fine, but as soon as I have to say it on this video, I go into proper English. Doesn't know how to say anything other than English. It's like when the commentators say it, they say it really well, and you can instantly emulate them. But also, a day later, you're like, "Wamana malanga." Anyway, right, let's talk about Akin Bierlozer's FSV Mainz. They lost 3-1 to RB Leipzig, and let's be honest, that was an achievement for them. I believe they conceded 13 goals to Leipzig last year, so at least now they only have to lose 10-0 in the next game to equal. Yeah, exactly. They'll be happy to only come away with a 3-1 defeat. It could have been much worse. In the first half, they were literally all over the place. A sloppy penalty was given up early, and it was really sloppy. He just takes out the striker's foot. Just literally kicks it, and there's no debate. And they never recovered from them. Their goal was quality. Robin Quaison's through ball was perfect for Mateta, who just coolly ran onto it and spanked it into the bottom corner. It was a good goal. We still don't know if Robin Quaison will last. Throughout this, he's been linked with other clubs. There have been a lot of rumors, but he did play in this game, and that generally means that there's no firm offer for a player at that point.
Their comeback never looked likely, though. Leipzig controlled the game. Mainz had 28% possession. So they did really well to score a goal in the 12 minutes of football they were allowed to play. Zettner had a decent game. The goals weren't really his fault. But Mainz lost through into Leipzig. Ian's thrown it over to me, so I'm going to make a score prediction now. I am going to predict that this is going to be a 1-1 draw.
I'm going to back Stuttgart, actually, to get the win. First win for Stuttgart. I think it will be Mainz 1, Stuttgart 2.
Ooh, close game still.
Yes. Borussia Mönchengladbach versus 1. Union Berlin.
Borussia Mönchengladbach under Marco Rose lost 3-0 to Dortmund. They are in the Champions League, so this is a side that really should be pushing. But they were pretty heavily outplayed by Dortmund. Dortmund were clinical. Play and Thuram both start on the bench. We can assume that they're going to be starting this game because it's nuts that they didn't start. And when they did get on the pitch, Dortmund looked significantly better. In my opinion, I'm pretty sure Thuram was fouled in the box and it should have been a penalty, and it made literally no sense. Playa had a chance at the end. These two clearly still play really well together. And like we said last week, Thuram is one of the players to watch this season. He really could take off, and at which point, he could be one of the top strikers in Europe. Hoffmann was probably Gladbach's best player, but he should have scored after 30 minutes and managed not to. The game is closer than 3-0, but there's something about Dortmund when they win 3-0 and the manner in which they did it. It can be close, but you just always felt every time they attacked, Jadon Sancho just going on little runs, and you were always afraid Mönchengladbach would concede.
I didn't see there was a lot of urgency from Gladbach, though. That was the main thing that annoyed me. It didn't seem like a lot of really desperate to get back into the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I mean, you've taken out their entire strike force. You played 3 at the front, and it's Hoffmann, Stindl, and Wolf. And you just wonder, I mean, Neuhaus played. He obviously didn't get a goal. Benzabaini, the foul he commits early in the game makes literally no sense. Yeah, I don't know. The team felt a bit half-assed.
Yeah, it's body language, isn't it? It's the whole. They felt like when they went 2-0 down, it was like, well, we've lost this game.
Yeah, it felt like they'd given in, and they kind of did give in. What about Union Berlin, though, mate?
Yeah, talk about disappointing losses. 3-1 loss at home to Augsburg. Fans back in the ground now as well for a lot of these games. So, that you can't say that they're missing the fans, but they probably are missing the full-on raucous atmosphere you usually get on Union Berlin home games. They didn't look that great. I thought they were, for Union Berlin side, they were surprisingly shaky at the back. New goalkeeper obviously in. Who's actually, I think, he's come in from Augsburg, so it was a weird sort of switch of the goalkeepers in that game. Good equaliser by Bulter. It was a good team move, and he finished it off well. And after that, when it got to 1-1, you expected them to kick on and then be the dominant side, and they really weren't. And that was very surprising. And it's a bad loss. I wouldn't say they'll read too much into it. They'll probably just say it's one of those things and move on. They're usually much better than that. It's a tricky one to pick. Because of Gladbach not playing that well in the first game, I don't see them winning easily against Union. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Mönchengladbach win.
I'm going to go 3-0. I was not that impressed by Union Berlin, and I wasn't impressed by Union Berlin at the end of last season either, which is kind of why I wasn't impressed in this. Obviously, I'm the one who for 2 weeks has been preaching you to be patient about Oxford and telling everyone when a big team loses to be careful, but Union Berlin aren't a big team and they aren't on a good run of form before this, so I'm a little bit worried about them right now. So I've got Mönchengladbach winning 3-0, but it doesn't strike me as being a classic match. TSG 1899 Hoffenheim versus Bayern Munich.
Both sides getting a win on the opening day of the season, Tom, but I fancy that one win was slightly more impressive than the other. And of course, I'm talking about Hoffenheim's win against FC Cologne, winning by 3-2. Great game, really entertaining game, very end-to-end. It very much was the Kramaric show for Hoffenheim. Or David Hoffenheim, as I've put down in the notes. Sebastian Hoeneß, if this is the exciting football and exciting, enjoyable to watch football he's going to bring out Hoffenheim, then I'm on board and I want to watch them all season. They were a bit opportunistic. They took their chances and they capitalised on some bad defending and got a 91st minute winner. But enjoyable times for Hoffenheim. But I'm not sure this weekend will be that enjoyable for Sebastian Hoeneß to go back to Bayern. Tell us about this narrow win they had against Schalke, Tom.
So it was a really, really tight match. There was only just under a goal every 10 minutes in this. Bayern absolutely decimated Schalke 8-0, and I can't wait because in the next match I get to talk about Schalke, who are the ones I really want to talk about, which Ian, by the way, has only written one note, which was they were destroyed, so get hyped. But really, Bayern, stop it. Just quit. Stop. You can't get better. That's not fair. It was an insane game. It was brutal. I think Lewandowski, I'm just, let me just read off the scorers. Gnabry, Goretzka, Lewandowski, Gnabry, Mueller, Leroy Sané, Jamal Musiala. And not only that, they have young players coming through like Musiala, who's getting on the score sheet. Like, this team is terrifying. They look like a Barcelona 2011 or 2012. Like, they're so good. They have so many young players coming through, and then they have fantastic knowledge in like Thomas Mueller and stuff. And Sané, who hasn't played football in like almost a year or whatever it is, has come in and ripped Schalke to absolute shreds. The highlights is just Sané going on run after run after run. It's just rude. It was incredible. Lewandowski only got one goal. Their best striker only got one goal, and it has a penalty. They're too good. It's not fair. And as such, Ian, I'm going for a 6-0 Bayern Munich victory.
Yeah, I did. Just one thing I did like is like all the young guns running rampant, and then Lewandowski with his little Rabona back to Muller, volleys in. Keeper just saved it, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah.
And also, just one more funny thing is at the game. This is serious on the game on BT Sport. Schalke actually for the first 2 minutes looked good, and that's weird to say, right? And this is why I say it is because the commentators instantly started saying, "Oh, I wonder if they've caught Bayern a bit cold here. I wonder if like Bayern Munich, there's a bit of a drop off after like not a long turnover." And then it's like, yeah.
What I love about this Bayern Munich side is that they never start a game looking like they're going to win it. Like, every match I've watched them play, you're like, oh, they're not that interested. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what point of the game it is, it just turns on. And once it's on, it is brutal. That Gnabry turn to his left foot to then just ping it past the goalkeeper. You're just like, wait, you can't legislate against an attack like this, especially in a league like the Bundesliga that's good, but it's not built on defensive sides.
6-0 you said, did you?
Mm.
Right, I think Hoffenheim will get 1. And I think it will be Hoffenheim 1, Bayern Munich 5. Now we get to talk about two terrible teams. FC Schalke 0-4 versus Werder Bremen.
Do we need to, Ian? Do we need to do this game? Can we not just skip it? I don't like either of these sides.
If you want, we can just give predictions and move on, but I'd like to give a little bit of thing about Bremen.
Okay, well, I'll really quickly talk about Schalke. Nothing to say. They were destroyed. I don't know if they've even won in 2020. I think they may have won 1 or 2 games. They're on a terrible run running into the break. They were terrible after the break. They've been terrible to start the year. We spoke about this off air. It's not necessarily David Wagner's fault, but you really can't see him sticking around for that much longer if this keeps happening. This can't be a nice situation to be sitting through. Their team had huge problems over coronavirus. We know that they might not be paying players and they might be broke. And I think it was Amin Harat, who's supposed to be like their best player, kept getting caught out. And
I think he should be praised for that.
By the way, fans of the channel, if you actually go back, that's exactly what Ian said before as well. So at least he's consistent with his message. But Schalke are garbage. Please tell me about whatever you need to tell me.
Just very quickly, Tom. This is second game, but for me, this feels like a must-win game for Schalke.
It feels like a must-win game for both of them, doesn't it?
For me, for Schalke though, especially everything you've talked about just then, they need a win.
Yeah,
they need a fucking win.
They do.
Bremen at least got some wins after lockdown and stayed up. But Werder Bremen, terrible at home last season and started with a 4-1 defeat at home to Hertha Berlin. Just shocking at times. They're just so. Sometimes they just look so disinterested in games.
Turgid.
Just like as soon as the opposition get on top of them, they just kind of have this knack of just capitulating. That's exactly what they did in this game. The only players that looked good for me were Josh Sargent and Chong. They showed a lot of promise. Selke did get a debut goal as well.
Chong looked like he didn't know what he'd walked into. He was walking off at half-time looking at his teammates and everyone else being like, what the hell, what are you doing?
Yeah. So they're the only bright spots for Werder Bremen. They usually do play better away from home than they do at home, so they'll be definitely looking at this game as a game where they can win. Piss poor defending, piss poor goalkeeping from Pavlenka for the third goal. He's literally just done a Kepa.
It's hit his hand. It's like full hit his hand, and he's almost just turned it in.
Yeah. But they just look pretty useless, don't they? And for this one, fuck it. How do you predict this one? What are you going to go with on this one?
2-1 Werder Bremen.
Are you really? Yeah. I've been going back and forth on this, and it's just because I really want Schalke to win.
You really love David Wagner. You love the man.
I really want Schalke to get a win. It's just... And do you know what? Fuck it. Why not? You've done Bremen. You went first. I'll do 2-1 Schalke.
Do it. DSC, Arminia Bielefeld versus 1.FC, Koln.
Sides that did not do well at the end of last season, and you can certainly say Cologne are one of those sides. And they've started again with a 3-2 defeat at home to Hoffenheim. I know you could say the manager and the fans are disappointed, but there's someone else, Tom, that I want to mention who's going to be even more disappointed.
No!
Hennes the GOAT.
Oh, yes, no, not Hennes.
Absolutely distraught he was. I know he was watching it from a live feed from Cologne Zoo. When are they going to reward this GOAT for his loyalty, for God's sake? But
the time he's put in, his golden watch.
It was a good game, though, and unfortunately, one of those ones where they just came out on the wrong side of it. Sloppy defending is what cost them. Hector's error for the first goal was really poor, and then they gave away a sloppy penalty as well. Sebastian Andersson, I think he's a good signing for them. They've got him in from Union Berlin. He's going to score goals, and he adds a lot to Cologne going forward. But what we talked about with Werder Bremen and Schalke, they're a side that needs a win on the ball pretty darn quick, and they'll be definitely looking towards this game as one they can win.
Yeah, I suppose it's my turn to talk about Arminia Bielefeld, managed by Yui Neuhaus. They drew 1-1 with Frankfurt. It was an interesting game. It's a good battling point on their first game back in the Bundesliga. They rode their luck at times, but they did try and play football when they had it. They definitely were guilty of overplaying at the back. The goal they scored was well worked and well taken. Cordova's through ball and Suku's finish were excellent. Center back Amos Piper put in a strong display and was probably their man of the match. I know when I talked about Frankfurt, I was like, they threw everything, including the kitchen sink, and they did. And actually, you need to give a lot of respect to Arminia Bielefeld for withstanding that for large portions of the game and still playing football, because you see sides like Werder Bremen and stuff just completely capitulate when the going gets tough. And Arminia Bielefeld, they set back and they went, right, let's do this, and they got a 1-1 draw. And I've got to be honest with you, Ian, I don't see Cologne winning this game.
It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult to pick them winning.
They're one of those sides that they played okay and they lost 3-2, and I just feel like sometimes those teams then come up against a side you're like, you should really win this game, and they end up losing because they put their good performance in the week before. What do you think the score's going to be?
Yeah, I haven't done a draw yet, so I'm leaning towards a draw on this one. I just feel that Bielefeld are going to be one of those sides that don't win a hell of a lot of games but get a lot of draws, and 2-2 I'm going.
I am going to go 2-1 to the Arminia Bielefeld.
That'll be a good first win for them back in the...
Indeed.
Sport Club Freiburg versus VfL Wolfsburg.
So I'm going to talk to you about one of the most boring sides in the Bundesliga. That's Oliver Glasner's VfL Wolfsburg. They drew 0-0 at home with Leverkusen, and I don't know who I blame more for that result. It was not a great game, which I'm sure they'll put down to the Europa League game on Thursday. Their best moments came in the first half. Brooks and Weghorst both missed good chances. Admir Mehmedi was Wolfsburg's best player, and a player who looked to actually drive the game forward, but it was honestly quite a crap game. Weghorst is being linked with a move to Spurs. I don't know, maybe they need like a third or fourth striker in that side, but after Son scored 4, he's not even going to get in the game. I'm really disappointed with Wolfsburg. When we researched them before the break, and then obviously before the new season, I just kept thinking, like, this is a good side. They have a really solid spine. They can play really good football. But they seem to be much more set on being a really good side. They're going to try and not be a good side, and they're really going to try and be, like, defensively hard to break down. But you've got all these great creative players. Yeah, but we're going to be defensively hard to break down, and you're like, you need to attack. Like, they never looked that good.
It's got to be the manager's philosophy, though, isn't it? To be like.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. That's why, I know I said the manager every time we talked about a team, but this really is Oliver Glasner's Wolfsburg, and they need to start doing more, because if not, it's just a waste. It's a waste of talent.
They come up against the Sport Club Freiburg side that have a win on the board, Thomas. They won by 3-2 in a very un-Freiburg-like performance, and very un-Freiburg-like score card, really. They did their best to blow a 3-0 lead, but they just about got over the line in the end, in a game where, against newly promoted Stuttgart, they were outshot and outpossessed in the game as well. They just were clinical when they needed to be, which is what we know Freiburg are like. They're very, very good at just sitting in games and taking their chances when they come around. Salai was probably their best player. He scored one and made another one for Peterson. Grifo and Hollow were also impressive in the game as well. A little bit surprising to see them be weak at the back. They didn't look as good, but maybe just put that down to kind of, players not being 100% up to speed on the early days of the season. And this one's going to be turgid, isn't it? This one's not going to be exciting by any stretch of the imagination. I think I know what you're going to pick, and I'll let you pick first.
1-1 draw.
I'm going to do my classic. I'm going to go 1-0 Freiburg.
Bayer 0-4 Leverkusen versus Racing Bullen Leipzig.
Yeah, well, I know you always want to talk about Leverkusen because you have this weird, fascination with them. I don't see it myself. But...
I love Bosch ball.
This RB Leipzig side looked really good. They beat Mainz by 3-1. They absolutely dominated the game. They just didn't get the goals to back up the domination that they had. It's a very, Nagelsmann's a young manager. He's got a young side. And they're very, very easy. When they play their football, they're very easy on the eye. And Poulsen was really good. Olmo, Forsberg. Obviously, just going to keep saying it. They do just miss that out-and-out striker. And that's going to be a common thing. Until, Poulsen becomes a bit more consistent and scoring every week, you're always going to say they miss that out-and-out striker because they really should have won this game by more. And on another week, we saw last season that there were games where they had to create a lot of chances and didn't get anything out of it. So, but no problems for Leipzig in week 1, and this one's going to be a tougher test. But I think they're going to win this game as well, and I'm actually going to go for a 3-1 Leipzig win again. Sorry, I did my prediction way too early there, Tom.
That's fine.
I couldn't hold it in any longer.
Apparently not. Well, Ian, let me tell you to the most forgettable game of the weekend. That's the one where we're just talking about with Wolfsburg. Bayer were obviously the other side of that. 0-0 draw, rubbish first half. Bayer were slightly better in the second. Diaby missed some notable chances. We already spoke about the fact that he really needs to add consistency to his game. Kai Havertz being gone.
What he did was he ran the ball along the goal line, then tried to get on his hands and knees and head it in. And by that time, a defender cleared it.
And by that time, 11 players had formed a wall and booted it out. No, honestly, I'm actually starting to get a bit worried about this Leverkusen side. They ended last year badly. They had to sell Havertz for less than they needed to because of obviously coronavirus, and they didn't have the money. And as much as Boschball is quite an attractive style of play, it's kind of pointless if you don't have the players to put the ball in the back of the net or some driving force like Havertz who's going to play great through balls or score the goals. And Diaby, he's good for one game and bad for 3, and without him taking on the mantle of Havertz, Leverkusen have nothing, in my opinion.
Yeah, they got Schick to come in, isn't it? I don't think he was quite fit. Whether he's the real goal scorer, I don't know.
Maybe it is, but a lot of my opinions on these teams is almost like the preseason didn't count, and it's just straight on from the break. And Leverkusen have been bad now for 5 or 6 games I've watched them in, and they've lost their best player. So I've also got a Leipzig win, but I'm going to go 4-0.
Well, not a surprise there, because they are the darlings of German football.
Now, very quickly, we do not have time today to do a shout out to everyone who commented, but genuinely, thank you all who've done that. Thank you for liking. Thank you for subscribing. We're so sorry this one's going to be a bit shorter at the end, obviously. But please just keep supporting the channel. Next week, we will thank all of you for your comments. Check out our Premier League videos, our League One videos, our FA Cup videos. All those videos are all online. And much love. See you next week.